I read them and I was kind of surprised. It's something I hadn't known about, recent research that had revealed what's called the science of glycobiology. And that's really turned out to be the frontier of medicine. There are thousands of articles written every month on the glyconutritionals, we call them now. I became convinced enough that I said, well, I'll try them, and sat down. I was 85 years old at the time, made a list of things that was wrong with me, all of them old age stuff, and came up with a list of 21 things. In 4 months, 20 of these 21 things were no longer bothering me, and that was 4 years ago, and they haven't since. However, I wasn't convinced. There's no such thing in all my medical experience where one modality would be effective against that many things. So I couldn't believe it. Well, I eventually cautiously tried it against someone else with similar symptoms, and bless my soul, that person made remarkable recovery. And then I tried it on some former patients that had intractable conditions that my medicine hadn't helped, and so on, and they got improved. I went for a solid year seeing medical impossibilities improve that I hadn't seen in 60 years of practicing medicine with drugs all put together. Since then, I have become committed, convinced this stuff is for real. I have given it to many people. I have consulted with many, many more. I am seeing more miracles every week than I saw in 60 years of practicing medicine all put together before. In my opinion, this is the greatest discovery in the medical field in the past 100 years. And my experience includes the beginnings of antibiotics, penicillin, and so on, which were by all means the most wonderful drugs up to that time and the greatest advance made in medicine. But this is going to influence more people throughout the world than the ones that just have their infections treated. Now, this gentleman that's going to make the presentation this evening has made an intensive study of glycobiology. I think that he is definitely passionately committed to educating people about everyone he meets on this wonderful new frontier in medical science, glycobiology and glyconutritionals.
First of all, before I get started, I just want to tell you, where I'm coming from with this, because, we all come from different ways, and there's a lot of reasons why, somebody has brought you to this to hear about this technology. And, in August of '98, I had a guy that came in where I worked, and I was working 12 hours a day, 5-6 days a week, and barely living paycheck to paycheck. But my wife, Judy, is a brittle diabetic. She's had 2 kidney transplants, peripheral neuropathy, which is why they amputate legs on diabetics, diabetic retinopathy, which is why diabetics go blind. She developed an infection in the lining of her heart, had what they called a mitral valve prolapse, or a damaged heart valve. She had dealt with 3 different forms of cancer. She developed osteoporosis, rheumatoid arthritis in her hands. And she was living on antibiotics all the time for something. A good month for us was when we didn't have an ambulance at the house, every week. I mean, if we went a week without an ambulance, that was considered a good week for us. So, I don't know where you all were, at when somebody shared this with you. But, sometimes we sort of become open-minded because, we've been doing everything that guy in the white coat and the stethoscope had to offer, and yet the best that the best had to offer, we were being told that we were looking at 3 to 5 good years, and Judy was looking at amputation, blindness, or stroke. I always, when I give this illustration and share this technology, I always like to kind of lead in with, most people, they form a box, and the sides of the box are the height of your education. The length of the box is your experience, your knowledge, things you pick up along the way. And most people basically form a box, and that's right there where they live. And if something happens over here, outside that box, we say to ourselves, well, that's too good to be true, or that's just not possible. And my point is this, what I'm going to share with you is probably something that's outside your box, because, it was way outside my box. It took me about 3.5 months to believe that what I'm going to share with you tonight was even true. So, getting onto this technology, what this gentleman told me when I went out to his house and sat down and he began to explain this, he said that, in the late 70s, the FDA was scrutinizing a lot of this aloe vera stuff that was on the market. I mean, we know about aloe vera, right? I mean, Grandma told us about it. You know, we keep one by the stove in case we burn ourselves. So it's the most noted healing component on the face of the earth as far as plants are concerned. I mean, it's mentioned 5 times in the Bible. That ought to raise curiosity with people. So there were a lot of claims being made about the healing properties and the capabilities of aloe vera. So a group of investors commissioned a doctor from Carrington Labs to find the active healing component in aloe vera. I mean, what was it that made it so powerful? Well, first of all, he knew it had to be what they call a live, pre-digested molecule. In other words, when you break that leaf off an aloe vera plant, it lasts about 2 to 4 hours. Then it gets all hard and flat, and it doesn't work anymore. Only live in the plant will it work in the human body. So in 1981, he identified a molecule by the name of mannose, and he filed over 100 patents worldwide on the stabilization of that molecule that kept it live, just like it was in the plant. Next, once they compiled all this and stabilized this, this was ultimately taken to another doctor, who at the time was head of Parkland Hospital, chief of pathology, one of the highest paid medical doctors in southwestern United States, and was given this molecule blindly and told to test it. Well, his first comment was, tested on what? And he was told anything and everything. We just want to know what it does. We don't really know. Well, in the early 80s, AIDS was a big issue. And so they begin with a large group of AIDS patients, and they begin to administer this foul-tasting, stabilized form of this molecule known as mannose in a liquid form. And to their astoundment, in less than 90 days, over 70% of those patients became asymptomatic. No symptoms, no signs of the AIDS. That was ultimately given to 3 more groups of doctors, same thing, same test, blindly, and same results. Next, they moved into what they called predictability studies, which basically meant that if you had a patient that had a blood work of ABC, that they could predict he'd get an XYZ type of an outcome. Where if a different patient had a different type of blood work, that he would get a different type of an outcome. And they were 96% effective at predicting the outcome with each individual patient. Now, for you scientific gurus, that's astounding, that anything in medical science, they could predict that high with each patient individually.